Ah, the smell of wine. Hopefully you've watched part 1, which was all about the look of wine. Today in our tasting masterclass we are on part 2, and that's all about the smell of wine. Hi, it's the Grape Explorer, back again with another video. Today we're going through a tasting masterclass and we're going through the smell of wine. So we have previously looked at all of the qualities that we need to take into consideration when we're looking at the wine. Today we're going to go through what you need to address when you are smelling a wine. Now, most of the pleasure of wine, for me personally, is derived from the aroma element when doing wine tasting. Spending an awful lot of time cooing over the wine that's in the glass and trying to extract the qualities, the aromas, and what that tells us about the wine that we're drinking. So for me, it is an absolute pleasure always to be able to smell a wine. When I go to a wine tasting, it's the one thing I look forward to the most. And the first thing that I do when I've got a wine in a glass and I've taken a good old look at it to try and evaluate a few things about the wine, I'm then going to swirl it. Now, if you're new to wine, 1, subscribe to this channel, and 2, don't forget to hit a like on this video because it does help the channel grow. But if you are new to wine, my advice when it comes to swirling wine is to do it on the table. Just get those aromas opening up. So this is oxygenating the wine and allowing the aromas to open. Some people like to do it on a table, nice and easy to do. Others like to do it in the air, in the glass, make themselves look ever so professional. But please be wary when you do this, as it can lead to accidents. Check it out. And there's some other red fruit. So I am particularly careful when I swirl it in the glass. I actually find it easier to do it on a table, really open it up in a controlled manner. So like I say, this is oxygenating the wine, it's allowing it to open up. And once that's swirled, it's allowing some of the wine to connect to the glass. It's going to allow some of it to start pouring down. It just opens up, refines it a little bit, and gives you a chance to give it a good old sniff. Now when I do that, I really stick everything in. Nice deep inhale through the nose of my wine. And you want to do that a few times, but you don't want to overdo it. And the reason that I don't overdo it personally is I don't want my mind to start thinking that I'm looking for particular things in a wine that may not be there. Your brain does have a way of playing tricks on you. It's a bit like sitting around a table with a group of people all smelling the same wine. If somebody says something about that wine, it can have an effect on your own interpretation of the wine, and all of a sudden you're smelling something simply because someone else has said so. So I do try to smell it just a few times. I don't try to overdo it until I've captured exactly what I feel is in the wine, and then I might go off and enjoy a few smells afterwards. But once I have swirled it and I'm taking that first initial smell, there's a number of things that I'm going to be looking for. So first off, I'm thinking about the primary fruit characteristics. So primary aromas really are those fruit characteristics. They're exactly what the grape are giving off from the grape itself and nothing more. So in the case of this particular wine, this is quite a light wine that I've got. Things that are coming to me are things like lemon and apple immediately. They're what stand out for me. So I've got some citrus fruit and some green fruit coming through on this particular wine. Those are the primary aromas that I've picked up as characteristics in this wine. You then need to consider secondary aromas. Now, secondary aromas are where you are taking aromas that are as a result of the winemaking processes. Now, this one is a very simple wine actually. It's not giving off any secondary aromas. But examples of something that might give off secondary aromas are things that may have been matured in oak barrels. They may start to give off things like vanilla or coconut, caramelly type aromas, for example. There may be other factors that have gone into some of the secondary aromas as well, and it's all concerned with the wine making processes following the picking of the grapes in the vineyard and taking them into the winery themselves. So I don't get anything on this one, but let's have a look at the red one here. Now the red one is quite a young one, but I have picked a wine that's been finished in some oak. So initially on the primary side of things, I'm actually getting things like black cherry, like plum, a little bit of blackcurrant on this one. And then from a secondary aroma, what I'm actually getting are some vanilla and some spices. Things like a little bit of cinnamon to me actually on this one. Yeah, cinnamon, nutmeg, baking spices along with that vanilla, and that is an indicator that there's been some oak aging on this particular wine. So those are our secondary aromas. That's all about processes that have taken place during the winemaking in the winery following the picking of the fruit from the vineyard. Other examples of secondary aromas might be where there's been some lees aging, contact with the yeast, it might be malolactic fermentation, and these are all going to add different characteristics to the wine. Things can become bready or buttery. You know, champagne, for example, can feel quite bready, biscuity on the nose, and that's because of the yeast contact as it's gone through its fermentations. And then, you know, something like a red wine, something like a Beaujolais, for example, where it goes through something called carbonic maceration, can also impart some specific characteristics, things like bubblegum and kirsch. And it's all about what's been done in the winery following the picking of the fruit. And then finally we come onto our third type of aromas, what we know as tertiary aromas, and these are as a result of aging of the wine. Now this aging can occur in barrel, it can occur in bottle, it really depends again what the winemaker set out to do. And what you'll get are things like honey on white wines, you might get things like leather, tobacco, earthiness on red wines. There's so many different characteristics that we can pick out here. Now, neither of these wines actually have any tertiary aromas. They're both particularly young in style. But to give you an idea about what you would expect for some aged wines, let's go through some of the characteristics you might see. So for something like a white wine, you might get things like dried fruits. Think about things like dried apricots. Marmalade is a really good example of a tertiary indicator in wine. And then on the red wine side of things, you might start to get into the dried fruit side of things like figs, prunes, any sort of dried fruit really. You might also start to get nutty aromas, particularly in white wines. Things like hazelnut, Brazil nut are things that are going to come through from aging. And then on the red side of things, you might also get things that are kind of meaty in quality. You know, something like an aged Syrah can be quite smoked meat from an aroma perspective. So again, it's very much going to depend on the wine that you are drinking, but there's certainly a lot that you will take away simply by smelling a glass of wine. But let me know some of your tips and techniques. What is it that you look for when you're going through the aroma characteristics of a wine? Let me know in the comments section, of course. The next video, part 3, is going to be all about tasting wines, and I look forward to catching up with you soon on that one.